Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. Welcome to boxing, heavyweight boxing in 2019, where nothing is easy, nothing is straightforward, and nothing is really what it seems, and we never quite get what we want. Even when it sounds like there's something good on the horizon, it just sort of evaporates in a heartbeat. And the latest sort of, boxing politics, just boxing drama gone mad, is this situation with the WBC wanting to order Dillian Whyte and Tyson Fury. It's a very complicated situation, and through the week I actually saw a few bits and pieces, just read in passing some of the headlines, but I actually had to spend, it would have been the best part of an hour, catching up on the latest headlines, the videos, the comments from all the respective sides, the WBC, Dillian Whyte, Tyson Fury, Eddie Hearn, on this whole thing, because there are so many threads to it, and I can understand why people find it hard to follow boxing. This latest thing where the WBC wants to make Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte, it kind of is, you pull one thread and the whole ball of yarn just starts rolling away on you, because there is so much to this. There's so much history here. And even from some of the statements both sides were saying, and this is, I'll go through some of this, it really was hard to sort of pull the fact from fiction, but also there's a bit of hyperbole being used, a few things that are being omitted to suit certain arguments. But I guess the headline is that Dillian Whyte, he wants to be mandatory to the WBC title belt holder Deontay Wilder. He was to fight Dominic Breazeale earlier this year. It was called off after Tyson Fury evaporated from the Deontay Wilder fight. Breazeale elevated to fight Wilder. Dillian Whyte left without a fight. And as a result, the WBC, trying to address his situation, because they made a petition to the WBC, him and his promoter Eddie Hearn, look, make us the mandatory to Deontay Wilder. And the WBC said, no, hold on, we're not going to do that. They had a mediation meeting with Hearn and Whyte maybe a month or 6 weeks ago, and the result of that, we haven't quite had it come out publicly officially, although the WBC has indicated it wants to make Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte for the mandatory spot, but that Whyte's team has not accepted that. And what they would like is that Whyte and Oscar Rivas be for the mandatory spot, and that fight is obviously in July. And that's, just some of the confusing and complex details associated with this, because the WBC is saying, look, you haven't had a final eliminator. You haven't had that final eliminated to deserve and warrant the WBC mandatory. And then you have Eddie Hearn on the other side, Whyte's promoter, going, look, we've been the number one contender in the WBC for over 500 days. So we're going all the way back to the back end of November 2017. It was at the end of that month where Whyte was elevated to the number one status. And just a few weeks before, Dominic Breazeale had earned his mandatory status, the very contentious mandatory status, by facing Eric Molina, although it wasn't clear that he was going to be the mandatory for quite, some considerable time, because it wasn't made public. It was said that the final eliminator was just an eliminator, and it was all over the place, and it wasn't until May 2018 when it actually, Dominic Breazeale has been confirmed as the mandatory. So Dillian Whyte has had 4 defences of his WBC silver title since winning it from, Robert Helenius back in October 2017, I think it was definitely around that time. So this whole situation, it's not exactly easy to follow, and for me, for example, how I follow everything pretty closely, and you nip away from the news, and not even, because I was obviously broadly following other things in the division, the heavyweight division, but just a couple of days of developments that I hadn't exactly been keeping a very close eye on, all of a sudden it gets away on you. So I can completely understand how hard it is and difficult it is for people who aren't really keeping abreast of all the developments, how difficult it is for casual fans to make, hide nor hear of this situation, which is the WBC mandatory. And often what it ends up coming down to, from what I've seen, is people will support the fighter that they support, not really knowing some of the facts. Because I heard Eddie Hearn in an interview saying, look, he's fought eliminators for the WBC, but, he hasn't got this mandatory shot and he deserves it. But at the same time, that also admits that he didn't take an eliminator with Ortiz, which was ordered by the WBC in 2018. Instead, he opted to face Joseph Parker. So there's, a number of things on both sides here, but it's clear that the WBC is really digging its heels in here. And this whole thing is just increasingly maddening for fans, because this whole talk of, will Dillian Whyte ever get a shot at Deontay Wilder? Will he become the WBC mandatory? Or what in fact is actually going to happen? Because this whole option of Tyson Fury, is this actually going to pan out? Because Tyson Fury was ordered by the WBC a guaranteed shot at Deontay Wilder. The rematch to the December 1st, 2018 fight with Wilder, he had a guaranteed shot. So why is he just going to walk into a final eliminator? It doesn't make sense, because, Deontay Wilder needs that fight with Tyson Fury if he's not fighting Anthony Joshua. And if it is going to happen sooner rather than later, Tyson Fury will just end up getting a voluntary against Deontay Wilder. It's as simple as that. He doesn't need to go any, a final eliminator route to get another shot at Wilder. Let's face it, Deontay Wilder, for his profile and legacy, he needs another Tyson Fury fight. And if he ever can hope to close the commercial gap between him and Anthony Joshua before having a fight with Joshua, he would need to fight and beat Tyson Fury to help raise his stock in the commercial stakes. So it's one of these things where Tyson Fury knows he can get the rematch. It's just a matter of when. And he's kind of been, there's been a whole lot of smoke signals from Team Fury about what's, when things might go. And Bob Arum saying the back end of 2020, and then it changes to February. Fury just said a couple of days ago it would probably be in December. But who knows? He's looking for that to be his third fight of the year in December. That also begs the question, who's the second fight of 2019 going to be for Tyson Fury on his ESPN deal? Anyway, I'm sort of getting away from this whole Dillian Whyte thing. So the whole, is it fair or not? I mean, he's been the number one contender for a hell of a long time now. Over 500 days, as Eddie Hearn was saying. It's the best part of 18 months. And let's face it, he is no closer to getting a shot against Deontay Wilder. He is facing his mandatory on May 18th, Dominic Breazeale, so Wilder wouldn't have an obligation to face another mandatory until, another year or so? So regardless of the direction of the ruling, even if there is a final eliminator, or even if he has made the mandatory to Deontay Wilder by facing Oscar Rivas, there is a sort of the sum total of any outcome is he's still going to be waiting for a long time. But it doesn't make this whole situation any less messy. It doesn't make, obviously Dillian Whyte wants a shot at Deontay Wilder, feels he's earned a shot, and many would argue that he certainly has done enough in comparison to many other guys, and potentially some of the guys that Wilder has fought in his championship career. So with Whyte, with wins over Joseph Parker, Lucas Brown, Robert Helenius, Derek Chisora twice, that's a number of names that, compared to other guys who've had a shot at a title, have clearly done nowhere near that. You can probably think of a number of names yourself. So who knows where all this is going to go, but isn't this just one big cluster? And whatever happens, even if Dillian Whyte, who says he's open to fighting Tyson Fury, but if that was really the case, why would they not accept the WBC ruling? Which, I can see on principle they would rather that Rivas versus Whyte is made the mandatory, but that doesn't solve the position either of the when he would fight Deontay Wilder, because they're not going to pin Wilder down at least for another year, even if things went their way. But I guess that, some of what's happened is going to give rise to the perception that Deontay Wilder is getting special treatment at the hands of the WBC. And I've seen the comments myself. You've seen them. People are saying that the WBC is corrupt, that it is making loopholes galore, making things up as it goes along, and it could be doing more here in the situation to actually go to Whyte's aid here. The number one rated contender who's fought a whole swag of fights for the WBC, defended his WBC silver title, has been the number one contender. But even at the same time, what's going to happen should the WBC actually go through with this whole Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte fight order? Tyson Fury is unlikely to take it up. He's even said he thinks that it's unfair the way that the WBC is treating Whyte, and he doesn't know what Whyte has to do to get a shot. Whereas, Dillian Whyte is saying he will fight Tyson Fury, but I think that's a fight we'd all prefer to see. But in slightly less murky circumstances. And this is part of the problem with boxing. It's never easy, is it? And this whole complicated and convoluted situation with the WBC and Dillian Whyte's status as the number one contender, there's no resolution in sight by the looks of it. And even if the WBC comes out and says, this is our resolution, this is how we deal with it, people are not going to be happy either way. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.